I am Martin de la Garza from Lawless, New Mexico, and I am a victim of government corporate corruption, civil court corruption, and attorneys' misconduct. I am here this morning with Lawless America, and I want to thank them for the opportunity given to me to expose corruption in New Mexico. I was a utility engineer with the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, which is well known to be one of the largest regulatory agencies, but also the most corrupt. They are very powerful because they regulate many entities, and therefore the corruption has been spreading all over New Mexico. This morning, I'd like to present to you the need for the government intervention so we can get rid of this cancer-like corruption. It is affecting our economies. It is affecting the lives of professionals. It is affecting their families, and also is becoming too expensive for the families to fight back, the professionals to fight back. So we need your help to have this country back to us the way it was designed to be by the Constitution of New Mexico, the Constitution of the U.S. The corruption in New Mexico that I have exposed, it has to do with what some people name the pay-to-play corruption or activity. The pay-to-play, they call it because some companies or some individuals pay government officials, and also corporations pay government officials so they can manipulate the system for their gain. As we know, that creates a lot of damage to our communities, to our systems, the government, the federal government, and also to the people that are being served by these corporations, regulated in this case by the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. We got to the point that I was terminated, that I became a victim of corruption, because for about 5 years I collected information while acting as a utility engineer for the commission, and that information had to do with how some companies were getting favorable treatment by some of the corrupted public officials, in this case commissioners. The New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, also known as the PRC, they have 5 commissioners, elected officials, and a couple of them, based on my evidence, they are corrupted. They've been helping some utility companies and some some members of the public, in this case homeowners associations, to create problems for some of the other utilities that are doing a good job, but they don't want them to be part of the corporate system in New Mexico. And that's because they've been, my evidence shows that they were in collusion with some companies, so in this case utility companies, so the small ones can be taken over by the large ones. Most of the little companies here in New Mexico are family owned, in some cases women owned, and Hispanic owned. So as you can see, the corruption, it is affecting families, small corporations, and the unrepresented sector of the community, the business community. So I got affected by all this corruption because we don't have a balanced system with this kind of a government agency because they are self-serving agency, that they just look at the benefit for themselves as individuals, and also, most importantly, they are taking advantage of natural resources of New Mexico by acting or being part of the corruption, like, for example, corruption on the regulation of water rights, which is it is the jurisdiction of the State Engineer's Office in New Mexico. Also, this PRC is being reduced in force after November through the elections. There are 3 proposed constitutional amendments to break down this corrupted regulatory agency because of all the corruption that is being exposed in this case in some areas by me and other former PRC employees. The only way to eliminate or fight corruption in that agency, it is exposing it, and also through the constitutional amendments, because that regulatory agency was formed by means of a constitution. So it is hard to fight it back. It's hard to get rid of the corruption in an emergency basis, because it has to be done through constitutional amendments. So that allows for these public officials, public servants, elected officials, to continue practicing corruption until the voters of New Mexico vote to eliminate or to break down, in this case, the PRC. I have filed petitions for impeachment for 2 of the corrupted officials, in this case commissioners, Patrick Lyons and Ben Hall. And as you know, it is an expensive, long process that is not fair for the taxpayers of New Mexico, and in some cases for the federal government, because not only state agencies get involved in this, but also federal agencies like the FBI and the state police, and to conduct the investigations, and also you involve lawyers. So it becomes a very expensive process to get rid of some of the corrupted public officers. Last year, New Mexico spent more than $400,000 to get rid of one of the corrupted commissioners. In that case was Jerome Black Jr. His corruption, it was more like he was taking advantage of the gas card for personal use. So it was more like a personal issue. The corruption that I expose is in a much higher level, more damaging to the taxpayers of New Mexico, to some utility companies, and to the whistleblowers like me that were willing, and they were ready and willing to expose corruption. In my case, I went through the New Mexico Attorney General, but it happened that one of the commissioners that was corrupted, he's not there anymore. It happened to be his cousin. So the New Mexico Attorney General is Gary King, and the corrupted official, the commissioner, was David King. I also filed for his impeachment, but because he was leaving in December, the end of the year, they didn't want to proceed with the impeachment process when I filed in October. So in this case, we're dealing with 2 new commissioners that are trying to put everything under the carpet, protecting their friend David King. They represent the same district, number 2, and also number 5. In number 2 is one of the companies that is being affected. They have filed for bankruptcy because they have to spend a lot of money on professional services and legal services to defend themselves. It is a small family-owned utility company, water company. The Division 5 District 5, I'm sorry, another company that is suffering the abuse of powers of this commission is a water and sewer company, also Hispanic-owned, family-owned, and they have spent thousands and thousands of dollars fighting back. And now they are in court because the PRC has filed for the receivership to take away the company from this family. It has become a very expensive process and is not